everyone, my name is Henry Are. I'm the social media manager for the Memphis Art Tech, and I'm also part of our training team. So today we're going to be going through the basics of how to set up CRC. This guide is specifically going to be for observers who are starting their S1 training. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is go to your preferred browser and just type in something like download CRC. And then once that pops up, it should be the first link, but the main thing is you see this little logo with the blue plane. CRC VNAS is going to be it. Once you get here, you're going to see all these other tabs. The main thing that you're looking for here is CRC. vStrips and V2DLS are something different. You will download for whatever device you're using. So for me, I'm on Windows. I would download for Windows. Let that download, and then you will open all of that stuff up. Now, I have CRC already installed on my desktop, so I'm not going to go through kind of how to get that app up. It goes for any app, just how you download it off the browser and then set it up. But once you have it, you will load up CRC. And now, yours should be a blank screen. You shouldn't have all these profiles. These are just profiles that I have based on controlling. So something that you're going to want to take note of is new profile, import file, and manage installed RTACs. The first thing that you're going to want to do is manage installed RTACs, and then from there you're going to go find Memphis RTAC right here. So in this case you just install it. I already have it installed, so I don't need to install it again, but for example, like if this was Memphis Minneapolis, I would just install it and go like that. So I'm not going to let that run through, but just make sure you let it actually run through, and once you've installed it, you can go back and now you're able to make a new profile. Now, side note, import profile is something like if you were to transfer CRC files, so let's say you want to save a file on this computer, and then you can send it to others, or you can put it on a new computer. You can just import a profile. For example, I have CRC profiles on all these profiles. Like if I want to import Raleigh delivery, it says error because I don't have ZDC files installed, what we just did, but that's how you could import a profile. But the main thing you'll be looking at to start your training is going to be setting up a new profile. So for the sake of this video, we're only going to really talk about ground. You're going to select the RTAC that you want, Memphis, and then Memphis should be the only one that you have installed. Memphis, and then depending on where you chose, you may have chose the current unrestricted track with Nashville, or you may have chose the Tier 2. For the sake of this also, I'm just going to just talk about Memphis because it's just the same. If you were to do this with any other field, you can do the same exact thing and walk backwards in terms of the steps. But let's just go with Memphis. Here we go, Memphis. Memphis Act is what you're going to want. Display type, you're going to click the Aztecs because that'll be your main display as delivery and ground. So Aztecs, profile name, Memphis, clearance delivery / ground. Whatever you want to name it to remind yourself about what profile that is. I'm just going to call it Memphis CD, which is clearance delivery, and ground is GND. So we'll click create profile, and here we go. We have our chat box. This is our chat box, by the way. I'll explain that here in a second. We have our controller list, voice switch, and that's about that. So first thing that I'm going to talk about here is kind of these boxes, what these black boxes mean. The first one you have is this voice switch box. This is essentially how you're able to communicate with pilots on a live network. When we connect later in this video, I'll show how that works, but for right now, that's all you need to know. For this controller box, this is just going to show all the online controllers, whether you're in the sweat box, which you will be doing your training in, or on the live network. This will show all the identifiers for the controllers. And then you have your chat box. Your chat box is how you're going to communicate maybe with text pilots or with sometimes coordination with other controllers, and among other things. There could be other things to use the chat box for. We also have an alias command file. I would recommend any controller to download that who's setting up CRC, and even controllers who don't have that set up. The alias file is super useful. It has some neat little commands that you can go over. If you want to look at that, you just go onto our Memphis website. It will be under references. Okay, and another thing with these boxes, you can shape them to how you want. You can put them however you want. Just make sure you're able to see your main screen, which is the most important thing. So like I'm just gonna quickly redo these. So yeah, bring it to how you want. Everyone's different with how they like their displays oriented. But just put it how you like. Okay, when we're looking at, this is the Aztecs. This will be, again, your main display that you're looking at about clearance and ground. If you ever are interested in moving it, you can hold shift and use your scroll wheel to move that around. Up here, we just have our range, so when we zoom in and out, we just see the range. This so acts as our shift button where we can just rotate it. If you want to change the color to gray, you can go like this. I prefer to have mine in the blue setting. Totally controller preference. Here's some bright tools that you can do, safety logic and whatnot. I'm not going to go into all this stuff, but you can look into that more on the VATSIM CRC page. Once again, if you open your browser and type in like VNAS CRC or VATSIM CRC, you should go up, and then there's documentation under that. Now, going up here, which is more important, you see we have these three bars. These 3 bars are really important, the hamburger, as some people like to call it. But, so what we have here is we have the connect. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to use global bookmarks. But then we have save profile, so any changes that you want to make to your profile, you should always click save. So, for example, I'm going to click save because I made this. I changed what's in my profile. If you don't click save, the saves are not going to change, and then you're going to get a profile without what you set it up as. And then moving down, you got save profile as, same type of thing if you want to save it, but you also want to change the name. Got profile settings, so here's the controller info text. I would recommend that any new controllers go read the VATSIM docs, the VATSIM published docs on the VATSIM website that say kind of what you can and cannot have in this little text info box. And then moving down, we have general settings. This is important. What you're going to have to do is you're going to want to enter all this kind of stuff, the password, so your user ID, and then password, of course, and then real name. And then here you'll pick your microphone and whatnot, and then your headset device, and then you can adjust speaker gain and headset gain. Your first time connecting to the live network, I'd recommend you go over all this before you connect, just so you don't have any issues with some pilots. Prompt, this is all kind of other stuff that you can go through, but all that kind of stuff. So like if I wanted to open messages with just tab key or close it, I can just go like that by clicking tab. Some other stuff here is display settings. Show DCB, that just turns on and off. It just depends. Once you figure out what you want up here, and you can always just undo that. I like to do that, just less clutter on my screen in my opinion. If you want to show status text, you can. And then you can also click show full METAR, and then it'll show the actual METAR on the Aztec screen. This is important if you want to just be able to check the wind and all that other weather reading stuff that you can read up on. And then moving on, we have window. You can, so from here you can make a new display. So let's say you want to also add in a tower cab view. I don't want window. You can make another window. Let's say you have another monitor. For example, I have 3 screens in total. When I'm controlling, like center, for example, I'll split my display up into multiple screens, and you can do the same with ground if you want like an ASD on one display and then let's say a tower cab on another. But let's say you don't, you're working with one screen, which is always good, or which is always, should say, fine for ground and delivery. You can use tower. Some like this display to just have, but again, you should be using Aztecs as the primary display. This doesn't really show you anything other than like the weather's automatically here, and it's a little bit more visually pleasing to some. Another one that you can do is stars, which in my opinion, is much more useful than Memphis specific, the tower cab. Again, Aztecs is your number one, but I do find having a stars display can be useful, especially when you're working arrivals too as ground. So let's just say stars, Memphis tower, ground. You will need one to connect, so you will just have to, sometimes you'll get an error saying, hey, you don't have a stars display. that just means you have to create one. So add display tab, ground. And so from here you have a blank screen, right? You can go up to maps and click on some stuff. So the 3/6 left, the 1/8, so our normal north and south configuration. Um, Here you just have another, just the stars display. This will essentially show your arrivals coming in. And then you can also see departures. This is essentially the screen for radar controllers and of course tower controllers as well. It doesn't apply as much to ground because ground you are more focused on an aircraft on the ground, not in the air. But it can be useful to reference to see like aircraft coming in and aircraft in the air, for example. For the sake of this video, I'm also going to show one other feature that can be useful, but again, you should not be relying on this. The main thing that you should be using is your Aztecs and understanding and learning the taxiways. But I'm going to show you this just because this is a CRC setup video, so I'm going to try and show a lot of the important features. But this is just to show winds in right there. It's not that important. This is the same disable mouse pan/zoom. So if you want to stop yourself from zooming in and out, which is not a habit that you should acquire, you should try and keep your display pretty still, and by zooming in and out, you're taking away from your scan. So the other interesting thing here that you have is top-down mode. Top-down mode will let you see aircraft. You can zoom in, right? And you can see the taxiways here. Again, for ground, you shouldn't be using this. There's no need for this. You shouldn't even have top-down mode on. I would just have a normal stars display on, and then use your Aztecs, and then if you ever want to reference the arrivals coming in, you can move over to the stars display. Moving back to this, we have new tab, new window, view, this, your messages, controller, voice switch if you want to turn that off and on, this kind of stuff, but you can play with that. This help, if you're ever curious about certain things, this help bar is really useful, but again, I would recommend after this video you go and read over all the VATSIM documents on CRC. They are super useful and have a lot of little shortcuts that I'm not going to go over in this video specifically. Let's see, what else do we have? Bookmarks. If you ever want to set bookmarks, you can just do Control Alt, so like Control Alt 1 global bookmark set. That was these global bookmarks here. If I just do Control 1, then it'll bring me back to that said bookmark. Now in terms of connecting, which we'll do right now, so you will have, since this is mainly going towards observers, you can connect to whatever position you want to observe, right? There's no, you can observe center if you want. There's no rule against that, but you must be connected in observer mode. So let's say, which makes the most sense, you're going to observe as ground, right? You'd click on ground, and by the way, this star just means it's the primary ground position for Memphis. If we're not splitting ground, that is the main one. Same with local. This is the other locals, but that's when we split, usually only in events. But here we go, ground, and then right, connecting as an observer. Once you get your S1, you can connect as a student and student 1 to signify that you are actually controlling. And you can connect to live, or you can connect to Sweatbox. Sweatbox is for training, which you don't need to worry about right now. You'll just connect to live, observer, and then here we go. So Memphis ground, observers, Memphis ground. There's no one here at the ground right now. You would see usually some tags, but right now that's how you'd observe. You're always welcome to observe. I would highly recommend that you go and observe some controllers on the network, whether you're in Memphis. If you want, there's no rule against observing others in other attacks. Just make sure, again, you are connected in observer mode. I'm not going to go over how to set up like a tower display or a Tracon display or an en route display. But if you want to observe anytime, I would highly recommend it. You can learn a lot. I highly recommend just taking some notes and understanding how controllers like to control. You can pick up a thing here too outside of your training to supplement. But other than that, you can disconnect from the network, and yeah, just make sure to always save your profile. And that is about it that we're covering for this video.